Welcome along. Better late than never, as they say. Don't work with children, animals, or technology. New technology, a new year, 2021. And interesting enough, our LinkedIn Live presentation today is about trends and everything. So there's going to be a lot of technology. So hopefully with our technology, we're going to be actually working well across that. But we're going to cover 6 trends today that are happening, that we believe are happening, and we're working with our clients this year, and what we're finding is going to trend in 2021. Some new things for the new marketing playbook. Interesting enough, the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening, as a lot of small businesses kind of face a lot of challenges this year post the COVID pandemic and all that kind of stuff. They reckon about a third of businesses are going to face some difficulty according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So what we want to try and do today is share some of these trends so you can maybe get your marketing playbook spruced up with some of the things that we think are really going to make a difference to move the needle for you for marketing in 2021. We're going to kick off with our first trend, but before we do, just want to kind of set the scene for you here in the studio. We have the American Strategist.
Yeah, no, excited to be here. It's a really fun topic, and I think it's just a really well-timed topic, especially with everything that's happening globally across the board, which we'll get into. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Good to have you. And also behind the scenes and checking on what's happening behind the scenes, we have Gav and Glenn, who you can see there, ready to take any of your interactions. So if you have any questions or comments or feedback, like get off, don't come back next week, whatever, make sure you jump in and say hi on the LinkedIn Live channel. So let's get started. So our first trend, we thought we'd cover up obviously the most obvious one, right? Is that most people are starting to work from home, as we know, because of lockdown and a whole bunch of stuff that we've gone through last year. There's this big trend to work from home. We love these statistics on this show. According to a survey by Enterprise Technology Research, they reckon the percentage of workers that are permanently working from home is expected to double in 2021. So I thought the first topic we should probably think about is, the traditional office. We are actually in an office here in Sydney, but traditional offices are sort of becoming redundant. People are now working from home. We want to have a quick chat about, as a trend, how's that going to impact on marketing? Because if you think about advertising, for example, core advertising, traditional marketing, people are generally going in on, transport. So listening to the radio. So the prime time spots are breakfast radio, drive time radio. If people aren't driving into the office, what are they doing? What are they listening to at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that we're having because, even though in the advent of podcasts and the advent of, Spotify and other streaming channels, people have kind of turned away from the traditional radio, the traditional TV in their commutes. However, they've always been there. They've always been very potent media. They've always been very tangible results. And it's not happening anymore. We're seeing more and more of a trend to the hybrid model of an office. We were just talking about earlier before this, about what does that mean? The workday schedule is becoming different. The commute now is all of a sudden wake up, brush your teeth, grab your cup of coffee, sit down on your desk.
Yeah.
It's not do all that plus 30 minutes of commuting, listening to the radio, even watching the daytime news with the cup of coffee. That's becoming more and more of a thing of the past now. So it's traditional outlets. And another big piece is the out of home, bus stops, billboards, all those touch points.
Yeah, we're not seeing them as much. No, exactly. And I suppose also, we're talking about traditional stuff, but even the digital media, right? So when would you mostly be checking your social feeds and your news channels and all that kind of stuff while you're stuck on the train for like 45 minutes or an hour? I wonder how engaged people are now doing that first thing in the morning when potentially they're just going to have a cup of coffee or whatever and then get straight into the work day.
Yeah, exactly. It's that level of productivity that people are seeing now with their workforce. They're kind of instantly jumping into the day. You don't have that mindless scroll that digital advertising had to break up. We're very used to that muscle memory of opening up your phone, opening up your laptop, and just scrolling through whatever series of apps that you may see, which present yourself multiple opportunities to get targeted for ads, whether it's through SEO, programmatic, anything else. And that's not happening. You're going to start seeing that trend differently as people go about their day consuming information differently as a work from home.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway here, probably for everybody thinking about the marketing playbook, is think about context. around your marketing. So context being, where is your audience right now? So your audience traditionally, if you were even targeting, you mentioned the word targeting. So if you were targeting, say, CMOs or marketing managers at certain organizations in terms of your targeting, or whatever your target market might be, they're traditionally now not going to be sitting necessarily in the office in a central location. They're going to be at home in the burbs doing something. So think about context, like how are they consuming your content? And some of the stuff we're going to cover today is actually all about the evolution of content, I think, in 2021.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And it's, unfortunately, obviously it's due to the COVID pandemic. So hopefully this is a fleeting trend, but it's definitely something to take advantage of now and be thinking about.
Yeah, so that's the first of our 6 is working from home, context, all that kind of stuff. Like, what is it we need to think about? So thinking about, and I suppose it goes back to basics, the buyer persona. Who is our buyer persona? Who are we really speaking to? It's more important than ever before. And then the contextual part of it. Where are these people living, breathing? What are they doing? They're not in the office sitting and being so, connected, I suppose. So our engagement has to be stronger. So let's move on to number 2, automation and personalization. So I think this is an interesting one. Post-pandemic, businesses have to become more efficient. They have to become more robust because, we've been through complete changes and disruption in everything that we've been doing in business today. So automation is very important. We've seen it across, robotics being used in warehouses, in logistics, even in shipping. New chatbots, of course, are becoming a big thing now and part of our everyday life, helping to answer customer inquiries automatically online. So what are we going to start seeing around this kind of automation and within that personalization?
Yeah, personalization is obviously near and dear to our heart with our partners with HubSpot. And I think the transition of the workforce has kind of led people to realize, what can we do? The buzzword from last year, I think, could be digital transformation. And with that digital transformation, a lot of that automation piece came across with that as businesses started realizing, hey, maybe we can operate a little differently. Maybe we can deliver our core product differently. And part of that is obviously personalization. We all see it with our daily digest of information, stuff that sticks out to us. Hey, Justin, hey, Tony, check out this offer. So I think personalization is something that's always been in the background with a lot of marketing aspects and a lot of advertising aspects, but I think has ever really been realized now just because people are more in tune to it, more in tune to how this stuff is getting deployed. It's definitely something that I think we need to take advantage of.
It's interesting because, like you say, the point there, I think personalization before used to be a bit freaky.
Yeah.
It used to be kind of like if it suddenly popped up saying, hey, Justin, how's your day? Or, hey, Justin, good to see you on my site again. It was almost like, hey, big brother, what's going on? Whereas now it's expected. I think people expect you to understand where they're coming from. And, all of that lives in, basics like the CRM. Yeah. Like, the worst thing you can do is like someone comes to your site or talks to somebody within your organization and you've got no track record of the conversations that have happened before. People, I believe, are expecting to have that.
It's absolutely, and I think it's part of the instant gratification too. We go through a way of consuming data, whether I'm researching a new car, a new home, whatever it may be, and to your point, we have grown accustomed to these reoccurring touch points, and making those reoccurring touch points personalized only builds that brand affinity for me, makes me enjoy my experience a lot more and enjoy that buying or research process. And I know Glenn wanted to say something too about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, I guess, from an entity or a business out there that kind of isn't using automation or personalization, what things should I be focusing on now? Like where can I be saving time, or what are the benefits of implementing the automation that I can see kind of kick back some ROI for me, and if I put the effort in, what can I expect to see?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I suppose if I can kick off with that, I think one of the most important things I think businesses need to think, or organizations need to think, is how can I remove the friction? Automation to me removes the friction. How do I make it seamless to go from one thing to another? So if you look at sales teams, for example, how do I connect with the sales team? If I'm a buyer, if I'm a prospect, I need to be able to connect with the sales team on my timeline. I want to be able to book into their calendar when I want to book into their calendar. I want to be able to search for products online when I want to search for products online, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So we need to make it automated for the process of being able to move down the funnel, the traditional funnel. If I'm at awareness stage, I want to move to the consideration stage, I should be able to do that automatically through the website, through the processes and the software and the technologies that you use. That kind of stuff. What would you?
Yeah, no, and I think one thing too that is kind of more of that instant ROI standpoint to Glenn's question. A lot of people have CRMs, but they don't necessarily understand the power of their CRM, or they're not harnessing the full potential of it. And personalization, automation, and numerous other touch points are part of that. So I think one of the more instant kind of actions you can take if you are a business, if you are somebody looking out there, is look into your CRM and maybe even reach out to an agency or someone to kind of help you guide that initial baseline of what you have as a CRM, how is it working, what is it doing for you, and then start moving into those automated touch points. Because the really, really cool thing about that stuff is once it's set up that first time, typically you're just managing it. You don't really have to go back through that core foundational setup again as you move through. But I think it would be an interesting stat to look at kind of CRM usage and how much potential is actually being utilized out of whatever particular CRM you're using.
Yeah. And I think also user experience, like, both sides of the fence. So user experience for the customer and the prospect, but user experience for the folks that are working for you. Yeah. Like the worst thing you can do is you've got someone using a spreadsheet, someone else using a CRM, someone else using something else. So I think these are all important stuff. Another message from the boys?
No, I was just going to comment back to that. I think what you touched on there, Justin, is great. And it's like we obviously get a lot of clients that come through the agency here at Salted Stone that do have a lot of analytics or data that's sitting in their CRM. They're capturing and they have a lot of, I guess, golden nuggets there waiting to be found, but aren't, I guess, executing on how do we use this data to kind of help push people through the funnel, and how do we set it up so we're not manually doing this, and we have systems set up that kind of do that for us in the background. So as data comes in automatically, there's marketing being pushed out that's helping these people educate and move towards becoming a customer for us. So good point.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, definitely for that trend is take a look at what you have internally, take a look at your processes and procedures, and really start to put some thought around streamlining that and building out that foundational approach.
Yeah. And I think just to add before we move on to the next trend, is also thinking about, before you jump into the technology, think about the mapping out, like Justin was just saying, like map out the buyer journey. And we do a lot with clients on this. So you map out the traditional buyer journey. How does someone naturally come through the process? First touch point all the way through to customer satisfaction, delight, and all this kind of stuff. And then from there, you can look at how do you add automation? Which parts of it are very manual, very involved, and how can technology start to punch up into that area? So I think mapping out strategically first. I think a lot of mistakes people make is they drive straight into the technology and they start trying to switch things on without really realizing, well, why am I switching it on? Yeah. The context behind it.
No, absolutely. Because it's everything does connect.
It does. So let's move on. So we're on to number 3 of our 6. So halfway through, if you just joined us, welcome along. Don't forget to, if you are joining us LinkedIn Live, if you're watching this post, then also remember just to comment wherever you can so we can keep conversation going. It's all about conversations in 2021. But if you have a comment or feedback, please make sure you use LinkedIn Live if you're on the live channel right now. So our next one is a bit of a biggie, because we're going to kind of combine 2 big things together. We're going to talk about this wonderful world of programmatic advertising and programmatic work, and also couple that in with decentralized finance or blockchain and all these buzzwords, which is interesting because normally we would be thinking, well, hey guys, this is about 2021, not 2030. But these things are happening right now, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Programmatic is definitely near and dear to my heart. It's such a powerful tool when used correctly. But as people have seen for even the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years that it's been kind of evolving, there are issues with it. And that's where blockchain is really come into play to help the transparency and to help the actual reporting figures. Because one of the big parts, all this ad spend is going to programmatic. People are transitioning to it very dramatically because of it's a very powerful targeting method. You know, I can put a geofence around us right now and target ads to you.
Do you want to just give folks that aren't familiar with that term, programmatic, in a nutshell, what is it?
Yeah, programmatic is essentially a way to purchase online ads. So the way I tell clients is all those annoying ads that you get on your phone with the pop-ups and the interstitials and anything you see, whether it's a dancing bear in the corner, those are all ad spaces that advertisers are selling. And programmatic is a way for businesses to buy that ad space and to allow the targeting. So if I'm on a sports site for a football, I can get targeted for a brand selling that football directly to me, and I see that advert on the side.
Yeah, cool. I did see, again, a recent study that said that programmatic advertising, revealed that 79, so this is a big number, like 80% of advertisers that they surveyed expressed worries around the transparency, with over a third of them regarding the lack of visibility on third parties as one of their key concerns. So I think this is where this blockchain kind of technology starts to come into play, and we'll probably see more of that in 2021.
Yeah, the scary thing from any view is the amount of data that's out there. Your data is out there, so it's a matter of managing it and protecting it. And blockchain is helping line those pieces up together. And it's from a programmatic standpoint, allowing advertisers to know that their dollars spent are going to ads that their target clientele are seeing. Because I could be a marketing manager and place a substantial programmatic bid and may never actually see the ad because I'm not targeting myself. I'm not the target persona. So the blockchain technology and the way programmatic is evolving to utilize that is going to give a lot of transparency to the ad buys. And I think where we're seeing a shift of the money out of it again, we're going to see a flood back in as blockchain evolves.
Yeah. So in essence, blockchain is going to put marketers back into control a little bit more about where their ads are being placed and how they're working, and even who's watching them, where the eyeballs are going. And programmatics also is, if I'm right in this, is kind of like blurring the gap between traditional paid and also, traditional stuff. Like we're watching, paid TV stuff now, and Netflix and all this kind of stuff. So it's starting to bridge that.
Yeah, it's bridging the gap, and it's looking at every touch point that's available. It's very brand heavy from that top of the funnel aspect, but it's connecting that top of mind awareness. So if I'm familiar with a brand and I'm seeing it, maybe it's a McDonald's ad, and I might Google McDonald's on my computer and get a specific ad for the closest McDonald's, but I may get targeted on my Facebook or on a ESPN or a different app for a Big Mac. So it allows that brand consistency across touch points to really, really come together. So you're connecting your marketing message at every stage of the funnel.
Yeah. And I think that's so important to kind of take away from this is the fact that we are across so many different channels now. And this is why it's getting harder, I think. And in 2021, again, for the marketing playbook, is be thinking about, trying different things, maybe allocating, and we've done this with clients, where you allocate some portion of your budget to some of this non-traditional way of doing it, like programmatic. Because when you think about it, like your audience is a little bit diluted. Like how do you don't know what's actually necessarily which channels are working, because they could be touching on social, they could be on traditional media, and all of this kind of stuff that's really just churned up what we know of marketing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it really can help connect the pieces, and it may uncover a hidden gem for you to target and get really specific to and get really good traction in. And just having that thought process to connect those pieces can really provide some good ROI.
Good. Cool. Okay, let's move on to number 4. So we're filling out your marketing playbook here with things that maybe you haven't thought about. That's the whole idea of today's session. We're going to talk immersive technology and AR, another big buzzword that normally you'd be thinking this would be 2030, but again, these are things that are starting to come in. If we think about marketing, the essence of marketing has always been about good storytelling. It's always been about tell me the story of the brand, tell me the story about your product. Like really, that's what it all boils down to. And I think now we're getting into this area where this storytelling is moving away from the traditional one-way communication, which is download my ebook, read my brochure, look at my web page. And it's becoming more of this immersive technology. So how are you feeling about AR?
I think
it's a biggie this year.
It's really cool because it goes back to even our other trend with personalization and that brand affinity and that brand loyalty connected with that user experience. And building all of that really drives that loyalty to a brand and loyalty to to really connecting with the product. And the quick example of AR, augmented reality, is the Pokemon Go trend of, I don't even know now, maybe 6-7 years ago. And it's allowing users to interact with the brand at a different level. And where it's been around for a while, I think the technology is finally really getting to that point where it can be used very cost effectively, as well as very powerfully. And quick examples are, if you want to look for a new pair of glasses, you could pull up your phone and pull up the company and see what brand looks good on your face, see what fits. Sofas, paintings, anything in your house, you can use AR technology. Brands can connect you. And again, it even goes back to the working from home aspect. A large part of the world is still locked down, but seeing that shift for brands into another way to connect to audiences and another way to connect to their target market. Hey, been locked up in an apartment forever. I need a new desk. Which desk fits well in the corner?
Yeah, and actually use it, which is interesting because you mentioned I trying glasses on. So retail, I think, is the biggest thing that we'll see an impact with this. Again, they did some surveys here. 71% of shoppers said that they would prefer to go to a store with a try it before you buy AR experience. So that's interesting, isn't it? So they're still necessarily going to go into the store to buy the product and physically try it, but they want to have a try before you buy type of aspect. So there's probably something to take away in our businesses here. Is there's something that we can give? It's almost like that. What can I try before I have to commit? What can I do in my own environment without physically having to come into a store or call you or speak to you?
Well, it can be laborious. It can be tedious, right? Everyone has had the car buying experience at some point in their life, or we'll go through it. The test drives. This is allowing you to test drive the pair of glasses, test drive the sofa, see what it is. So when you go to the store, your shopping experience can be dramatically cut down. And crowded shopping centers, crowded stores, that can be a godsend to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, and if you think these are kind of like buzzwords for the future, and maybe we should be investing in that. To Justin's point, like technology has moved ahead with this now. So from what I've seen, it's not as expensive now to have an AR kind of experience to what you had before. And to put it in perspective, again, 1.9 billion people per month are expected to use AR in 2022, with 3 billion devices worldwide currently using AR enabled kind of activity. So it's massive numbers. So again, there's an audience perspective out there for you as well. Like, again, getting that competitive edge in 2021 is going to be super.
And like I said, it ties back into the brand, building that brand awareness, that brand loyalty, that end user experience, and making it the best possible across many touch points.
Yeah. And I think one last thing on that, which again, without kind of bamboozling people with kind of these statistics like we generally do, but this is the one that I took away, which was just massive for me, right? Since the beginning of 2020, AR engagement has accelerated by almost 20%, with conversion rates pushing up to 90% among users who engage with AR opposed to those who do not. 90%.
Yeah.
That's strong engagement. That's almost
really
like when you can get people engaged and involved in your product.
Yeah, and again, it's that AR can a lot of times be that open door, that first threshold people walk through to your brand, and making it fun, making it exciting, and a really cool way to do it can open those people and expose them to many different products that you may sell. So I think it's something that hopefully continues as the tech evolves. We may see it plateau as people kind of get desensitized to it through the years. But I think it's going to be a very powerful engagement tool for brands to, like I said, open that door to their company and to their products.
And I think, like we just talked about AR, but there's other kind of buzzwords which are a part of what we do with marketing that should be sort of touched on within your marketing playbook, and that's things like AI, which is built into so many different things. Artificial intelligence, so certainly in chatbots, we're finding machine learning is becoming an important thing. So instead of having the traditional, we talked about chatbots at the beginning as a trend, but if you think about chatbots just being a one-way conversation, which is like a transactional type bot, with partners like Drift that we're working with at the moment, it enables you to be able to build this kind of machine learning that starts to understand the conversation that your chatbot is having and make that more personalized and more relevant to the buying experience. So keep an eye out for, obviously more of that machine learning and AI. Let's move on. We've got a couple more to get through, and don't forget, if you are on LinkedIn Live, let us know what you think. If there's something we missed, what you're finding as a trend for 2021, especially in marketing or in business. But one of the things around business is this trend from going from global to local. And I think this is something to be thinking about. Again, it sort of comes back to that context about where your buyer personas are. A decline in international travel, borders closed, things are, keeping us sort of more focused on our local right now, especially tensions between the US and China and Brexit in the UK and Europe. So businesses are starting to source and manufacture their goods more locally and avoid the turmoil of these kind of international logistics. So it's interesting. What does that kind of mean for marketers if things are more on our own soil rather than an international platform?
Yeah, and I think even taking a step back, I think it goes back to people being locked down and being almost more aware of what brands they have, what brands that they're interacting, what do those brands stand for, what does it mean being made in Australia, made in the US, made in the UK. And so I think it's a level of education that people have been going through just by being around common brands more often than they usually are. So I definitely think it's going to be an interesting trend to see play out. It can come up through the timeline of history. It has ebbs and flows, right? The buy local mentality. But I think what it's really doing is brands now have to be more conscious than ever of what their brand means, what their brand does, and where it's made, what it connects to, what does it really put out for the client.
Yeah. And I suppose it all comes down to, the communication of the brand, right? It's kind of like really thinking about how are we making this feel local? How are we making this feel, again, adding that connection between the customer in a localized environment and the fact that you're kind of here, it's Australian, because we're all connected in Australia. We're not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose off the back of that kind of leads to our last one, which is social engagement. Like one of the big things we've seen certainly through 2021 is that brands have really taken a different approach. Well, the successful brands have taken a different approach to social media. I think social media generally has had a good bashing over the last especially over the last few months with Twitter and Trump and you can talk to that because that's your kind of but also Facebook and some of that kind of stuff. But really brands have started to engage more with their prospects, again creating more genuine and more authentic kind of presences across the social media platforms, and even creating these kind of real life brand stories. So thinking about your social media for this year and thinking about how can you create more brand life stories, even engaging in micro influencers and influencers to kind of get your brand message out to a wider market.
Yeah, influencers has always been a burgeoning topic over the past, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it's something that's going to be more and more focused and more driven because it can connect so many different networks. You're absolutely right that organic brand perception coming out on social media and building that community and fostering that conversation. Social media and social engagement can be a very, very powerful tool to kind of foster that thought and foster that line of communication.
Yeah. And I think we have to just be careful that we kind of choose one or two of these channels and actually just spend time investing in like understanding the trends, looking at what we were talking about before about the importance of data, like, connecting them to HubSpot and platforms where you're really analyzing the data, not just putting out post for post's sake, but actually analyzing like who's looking at them, who's engaging with them, and then, really starting to build it almost like what we're doing now, like a broadcast channel. So your message is actually valuable.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think it's definitely that it goes back to that core thought process of kind of what you're doing, why you're saying it, and where you're saying it. A lot of people can dive into social media because, hey, it's a trend, right? I need to get into it. But there's specific posts, there's specific text copy, there's specific image that needs to be displayed on particular platforms. You can't just kind of one-off this stuff. So you have to have a thought process. So absolutely, diving into the data, diving into the analytics that are there. There's so much there, whether it's demographic, whether it's time of day, to really find that engagement and really develop core content for that platform, for that media. And then specifically, again, for the second platform and third platform, should you choose to keep going.
Yeah. I remember I always used to look at it like, and maybe we've moved on since then, but almost thinking about it like we do TV channels. So in Australia, we've got different TV channels, but if you tune into kind of channel 10, it's kind of more young and hip and, that kind of sort of stuff. You tune into channel 9, it's a bit more authoritative, newsworthy, that kind of stuff. This is how it used to be anyway, and ABC kind of thing. But then if you go to channel 7, it's kind of in between the two. So your messaging and theming should maybe be targeted towards the channel.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to the data that's there and understanding the channel and understanding what conversation needs to happen on that particular channel based on the audience that's watching.
Yeah. And do you think we, from a social perspective, going back to Trump and Twitter, should we be more polarizing and actually drive engagement by making really strong statements?
Good. We almost made it. We got 31 minutes into the show without bringing that up. But no, I think it's an interesting conversation. I'm by no means the authority on this, but it's, I think one of the things that I've always been taught, thankfully by my father and the way I was raised, is there are where you may have free speech and you may have the ability to put that free speech out there. There can be repercussions for things that you say.
Yeah.
So, I think there is definitely a balancing act between that, and being able to have the ability to voice your opinion on many different platforms to a massive, massive audience.
Yeah.
But also the understanding and the social good conscious that, sometimes maybe don't press send on that tweet.
Think about it first. Where Trump has gone straight on that. Luckily, he wasn't like that with the red buttons for the nuclear wars.
Exactly.
And getting that started. But interesting. What it reminded me of as well. A lot of stuff that we do with our clients is the brand voice.
Yeah.
Like I think, hit us up if you want us to send you like an activity that you can do with your teams, which is called the brand voice. And you literally just go through and look at things like, impact and volume and all this kind of stuff. And if you plot between your team and anybody that's working with you, your marketers or, people, if they're just doing social media or whatever, plot what that brand voice is going to be, because down one end of one of those things is polarizing. And I'm sure the likes of people like Trump would have had their whole thing down this end, impact in your face and polarizing, maybe a different chart altogether. But it's good to do that and then just look at that and say, that's our brand voice for 2021. And then make sure everything fits, like how we write our blog posts, how we communicate on the phone, how we communicate on social, ticks the box for the brand voice.
It's the consistency too, and staying with that, and it's allowing, similar to the other trends that we've talked about, users get used to digesting your content when it's consistent. So ensuring that you know your brand voice, ensuring that you have that tone across the board, allows users to be predictable and know when to see information and what that information is going to tell you.
Yeah. I think we've got a comment from the guys.
Yeah, I guess hearing the 6 trends and you guys have been speaking about it, it's like, okay, it's, end of January already, 2021, there's all these buzzwords and things I can be doing, automation, AR, AI, social. How would you recommend planning where I should be putting my effort? What should I be, what if there are these trends, what should I be inheriting into my business and what should I take action on? Obviously, doing everything, you can water things down and you don't necessarily get the full impact out of something. So how would you say to our listeners, like, where I can, where should I put my focus for the year?
Yeah, that's a really good question from Glenn. It is the big thing, right? It's the same as whenever you go to a conference, right? Whenever they used to exist, we don't go to a conference and you fill your big book up with all these different ideas and you come back and you implement nothing because you've got far too much to do it. So I suppose from my side, I would be thinking it's about thinking about pulling it back. Like we talked about this before, is taking the time first to think about strategically, where does the business need to be, right? What are the things that are going to move the needle first and foremost for you right now? Because the worst thing you can do is invest in something that's long-term and forget about the day today. Forget about what is important to your business today. So I think really just doing something around strategy, bringing your team together. Some of the best ideas sit right now in your organization. From the lady on the front desk to, the guy down in the, a warehouse, wherever it might be. These people have the ideas. These people are the ones dealing day to day with what's happening in the real world. And sometimes I think the people that are doing marketing are not necessarily attached to what's happening in the real world. And your marketing has to be real. It has to be really connected and real. So I think strategically bring the team together, spend some time doing some kind of a strategic workshop, bring some people in, work with an agency, whatever, but really start to think about prioritizing what are the things we can do now and what does the roadmap look like for the future.
Yeah, and one thing I always like to tell clients, and I think it's even more pressing now in current times than ever, is take a step back and think about things. You know, people, to Glenn's point and to your point, can really rush into, oh this, oh this, oh this. My agency said I needed that. The kid down the street said I needed to do this. Take a step back and really think about things. Really think about things from a foundational aspect. Really think about things from a structural and an operational aspect. And what I find is when you really take a step back and put that thought process there, and you kind of stay to that thought process, everything you just say really comes into play. Things that really stand out and need to happen highlight themselves, and you don't water down your kind of pot. You don't water down your situation, and then you have consistency across the board with the touch points. I think people can really feel the pressure, whether it's digital transformation or we got to do this, we got to do that, and just grab the quickest thing they can grab, and then get 6 months into it and go, wait a minute, why the heck did I just do that? What did I just spend money on? What was even accomplishing with that? Yeah. So take a step back, catch your breath, really look at what you're trying to do as a business, and really look at what you're trying to promote and speak about and how. And then those pieces can typically fall together pretty quickly.
100%. And I think a lot of us are in this process where we're reactive, not proactive. So when we say that there's 6 trends for 2021, it doesn't mean that you've got to go and do them right now. Like you've got to literally get out there. I'm behind. It's January. It's the end of January. And I need to be doing AR and I need to be going local and whatever. It's the case of these are the trends that we think are happening right now over the next year. They're not going to finish by the end of this year and we start a whole new range next year. They're going to move. It's like they're growing. And this is the trends forward. And we've been talking, like we talked about AR. We've been talking about AR for what, 5, 6, 7 years, like it's been around. AI has been around for it. Machine learning. Like there's a lot of stuff that's been around, but they're starting to bubble to the surface. So the idea is to get together and plan to have a lot of this stuff starting to become part of your DNA and part of your marketing strategy by the end of 2021. So think about these as the 6 trends to work on in 2021 rather than the 6 trends that we should be doing right here, right now. Because I think you'll then be setting yourself up for a really good 2021 if you don't forget what's happening today, but also an awesome 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of those foundational aspects that have come to light in this conversation, that's set, barring any massive global pandemic or any other kind of major influence.
Another one.
Those foundational aspects are going to stay the same.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that probably brings us to the end of today's session. So I hope you enjoyed our LinkedIn Live. We're going to be trying to do this regularly, so at least once a month, maybe once every couple of weeks. You'll see updates on the channel of what happens. If you want to catch a recording of this, you'll see this on the Sorted Stone APAC LinkedIn channel, so you can have a look at that. But really, in closing, it's really just about businesses, all of our businesses in 2021, starting to think about being more agile. Like if anything's taught us in 2020 is that we have to move with the times. Things are thrown at us from all shapes and sizes. So our businesses need to be more flexible, more agile to be able to kind of move with whatever's thrown at us to survive and thrive in this kind of new world economy. And we need to be technology driven. We need to be thinking about how can technology automate how we do things, like a CRM, marketing technology. Check out HubSpot, check out Drift. Like all of the technology platforms that have come so far in the last few years, how can they really help my business grow and really just embrace change like ever before? We live in a world of change and it's not going to change any more than it's changing right now. So I think some of this stuff should be in your very flexible, very ever-changing, very agile marketing blueprint. But from us, thanks for joining us for The Couch.